Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidate interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Joy Cardine, and I'd like to introduce Matt Veldran, running for Dane County Supervisor in District 4. As we begin, I'd like you to give an opening statement as to the educational, vocational, and civic experience that you have, which qualifies you for this office, and why you're running for the Dane County Board.
Sure. Thank you, Joy, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for providing this great service to the county and the community. My name is Matt Veldran. Currently the Dane County Supervisor for District 4. I've been on the Dane County Board since 2006. I was first elected. I'm a graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in a political science degree. I've worked in the legislature. I've worked for private law firms. Currently, I am now in a sort of a different spot. I am a chief financial officer for a small rental construction business. So that's kind of a different change, but I think that actually is very helpful to me both in my vocation here, because I was the chair of the Public Works Committee for 2 or 3 years back in about 2012, 2013. So there's a lot of crossover, as you can imagine. I've also been on the Health and Human Needs Committee for about 4 years. And currently I am on the Personnel and Finance Committee of the County Board. I believe that my strong background and experience makes me the best candidate to continue to serve the people of District 4.
What do you view as the most significant budget issues facing the board, and how do you propose addressing them?
Absolutely. Well, as most folks unduly know, we just finished the final financing for the jail project. It's been obviously a long and laborious slog, if you will, of changes, and I've advocated and lended my voice to a smaller facility, but I think we've gotten a facility that will serve the people, the residents of the county the best, for still consolidating from 3 areas to the one facility. Maybe we'll have another question on that, but from a budget standpoint, it does put a lot of pull on a lot of our borrowing, because it is a significant amount of money, over $200 million we've had to budget, and we have already started, and we will be borrowing for. But with that in mind, it's going to have to put some fiscal constraints on what we look to borrow for other projects, and it could bleed over into other areas of the county budget.
What do you see as the next right steps for the county to take in addressing mental illness and substance use disorders to divert people from the criminal justice system?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things we're just starting on is an opioid settlement committee, which is the funding that we got from one of the big opioid settlements. County executive put money in from the settlement and directed it in certain areas, and the county board, during its budget process, agreed with some of those areas, and then other areas this new committee is going to look at how to spend that and how to make sure the money gets to the people that need it the most. There's certain areas that was already the county executive definitely addressed various groups that needed to partake in the settlement, minorities, low-income areas, and those areas will be addressed, I think, by this committee to make sure that we are getting the most money for the settlement. From a mental health standpoint, there was a subcommittee of the Health and Human Needs Committee that met a few years ago. It was a behavioral studies committee. It also met and was part of the money that the county executive put in back in 2019 from the CJ Tubbs budget funding allocation that the executive put $1 million in, and this behavioral group is going to look at they had hearings and how to best serve again the most people. We've also had over time. I was on the a subcommittee of children and youth group back in earlier my term, and one of the things that committee had the Dane County youth assessment, and a lot of the questions there addressed both substance and mental health issues that our youth were facing. So that's also being taken into consideration, as well as people from various ages, and to make sure that either homeless needs or folks that are in those situations are also going to get mental health that they need. And so it's just that this behavioral group suggested having a partner on board, and then to start to set up that actually the whole behavioral area, and actually a facility. But that is in the works right now, and we're kind of waiting on that.
How would you evaluate the county's current efforts to address homelessness? And are there any additional steps you believe the county should take to address this issue?
We have substantially increased our investments in building affordable housing, and hopefully to address the homeless issue. We have the day shelter that's been up and running now for probably 7, 8, 10 years. We have been building with partners to construct as much affordable housing as possible, and obviously in Madison and Dane County, that's a tough task, given the price of land and materials right now. But it's hard to get partners that will work with us, and we do get them, and we have been able to distribute this money, and it's 10 million this year, and 24 was 5 million for 23. It's gone steadily up. The one thing I want to make sure is that when we build a facility, we don't just walk away, and we haven't been. But with some of the concerns that have happened in Madison with one of their partners and some of the issues that have come around the housing, I don't want to just build a building, put people in it, say, and wipe our hands and say we're done. I think having supportive staff and a way for folks that are in transition to get the services they need is just as important as just having a roof. It's certainly important to be warm and safe out of the elements, and getting your life sort of back together. But I think if those other supportive services aren't available, it's almost a recipe for failure.
Concerns continue about noise abatement related to the presence of the F-35 fighter jets and PFAS pollution at the airport. What do you seek to do about these concerns if reelected?
I've talked to my constituents, and my district is west side and south west, and it's obviously less of a concern in their daily lives. But I listen to the folks that live closer to the airport, and the PFAS is something that we're addressing right now, working with the state, working with the federal government on how to abate that. There's the PFAS at the airport. The biggest problem with that is that there's a mandatory foam that the Air Force, the National Guard uses to fight fires. They only use it when there's an emergency. If they practice, they do not use this foam that has the PFAS in it. There are new foams on the market. They're just starting to come on and being used in bigger cities, and we are sort of waiting for the federal government to sort of do their whole procurement process to eliminate that foam that has the PFAS in it. And we've also been working in the state and the federal, like I said, is working on the cleanups and how do we go forward. There's significant funding available, and the ways that's being addressed is is being done more at the federal level right now. The noise is an issue. There's no question about it. We work with the National Guard to say when they'll be utilizing the when they're doing their runs and their practice and when they're actually doing flights, is to try to do the loudest part of the engines at the highest altitudes, so not to disturb neighbors as much as possible. And also, I was just talking to the airport director, use the one runway that's away from people as much as possible. But sometimes the actual wind and the conditions will dictate what runway they have to use.
What else, if anything, should Dane County be doing to address health disparities?
Obviously it's hard because a lot of that is done at a higher level than county government. But we have done a lot to expand the uses and the ability of the health department, the Madison Dane County Health Department. We've facilitated areas for women's needs in what's going on with sort of the mixed messages now of what's going on in terms of abortion care. Now we obviously have the courts involved with that, but we've added staff to help those areas for women to get the services they need and to facilitate as much as possible. Some of the other health disparities are hard financially, but like I said, we rely on the health department to do a lot of the things. There's partnerships that around the county. I know in Madison specifically, where I live, that there are local people really addressing some of the basic needs and really they just become facilitators as opposed to just actually giving care.
Please tell us about other priorities for the residents of your district that we have not yet addressed and how you would propose addressing them.
Sure. I think some of the things that we always care about are some of the bigger areas. I mean, being in Madison, it's a Madison district. A lot of the needs of the residents are handled through the city. So that's always been one of those sort of push and pull areas for a county supervisor. We care about the lakes. I always make sure to stress to my neighbors that we're not near any of the lakes of the chain, but I stress that when we do our leaf collecting and raking, that we keep our leaves out of the street. I know that's a minor thing. It can be a minor thing, but it can be a big help to keep those nutrients out of the street and into the water, into the sewer system. So that's one of the things that we care about. Certainly using the parks as much as possible, and so I think expanding that and keeping that going. A lot of the things we always talk about from a road standpoint is making sure the county road system is good, and then a lot of new areas in my district will be utilizing more of the social services and human services that before my district changed a lot. So to make sure that those areas are being addressed as well. And then making sure that community policing, I know obviously I said this is a Madison district, but to making sure that it's being administered as fair as possible, and that we can maybe fix some of the disparities that have shown being alarming in this county.
And finally, what would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
Sure. Like I said, my name is Matt Veldran. I'd love to have your vote on April 2nd. I think that, being a supervisor since 2006, knowing how the county works is important. Making sure the priorities that we put in our budgets the last handful of years with a transition to a new county executive, and knowing, like I said, how the board works, how the county government works is going to be very important for the person that sits in the seat. So I think that my background and strength of working with people across the aisle, it's a very progressive board these days, but I think just making sure that to understand that we do have to work with budgets, we do still have constraints, that we can't be everything to everyone, is important. And so really to stress the priorities of clean water, clean air, safe roads, a justice system that works for everyone, and addressing some of the new mental or expanding on our mental health needs, and to divert as many folks out of the justice system as possible. So those are the areas that I think that are still important to my constituents, to all of Dane County, and I'd like to just continue to address those in a new term.
I want to thank Matt Veldran for speaking with us, and I want to thank you in the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I'd like to remind everybody that the general election is Tuesday, April 2nd. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, thank you for joining us.